Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are starting out with a not quite cross-country flight, but we are going to be flying from a Class Charlie to a Class Charlie, Colorado Springs Airport up to Centennial, and we are going to be covering a little bit of a different approach today. We're actually going to go into the flight planning, and I like to use this tool called SkyVector. This is Colorado Springs airspace, this is Denver's airspace, and Centennial is right down there. KAPA. And we're actually going to set up a little flight plan just to make things easier. Alright. Alright. Estimated 25 minutes at 110 knots. We're going to be doing closer to 160 at... Come on. We're going to probably go up to 16,000. And we're going to go probably 160 knots. So, and they think that's a 7-minute, okay. Probably not. But, you never know. So, the winds are currently 240 at 3 knots, which means we can take off to the north and then we can land to the north. So, I will bring up a quick map. It's the airport diagram. We are going to be parking over here in general aviation. So, we're going to probably be wanting to come out of Alpha 3 or Alpha 4 onto Alpha, taxi south, and we'll take 35 left. If possible. I think they will give it to us. If not, we're going to have to taxi all the way over there, but they tend to land the big jets over there. So realistically, we're probably going to be able to request 35 left and probably get that. There's a little run-up area. There's no run-up area. Anyways, so that's how we're leaving. I have those on my kneeboard, and that'll be that. So we are going to get a fresh sheet of paper, and we're going to start writing down information. So we're going to be going from KCOS to KAPA. For some reason they call it Arapahoe, but it's known as Centennial, and it's called Centennial. Kind of weird. So we're going to fly 343 for 46 miles. So that's just kind of our backup bearing in case we need it. Do they have a VOR? It looks like Buckley is the VOR. If I come look over here, here's Buckley. That's an Air Force base. We don't really want to be going to an Air Force base. And I'm going to cover what all these little circles mean and why they're important. Bring that airport diagram back up, and so there's general aviation parking, but here's hangars, and here is the general aviation terminal. There's another terminal and customs right there. So realistically, we probably want to land and go over here to the Alpha ramp. Actually, no. Let's go general aviation, because we don't need the full 10,000. We can have it, but we don't need it. So we will probably come off and go to general aviation terminal. That's what we'll request from the tower. They don't have a VOR on here, but they have the Buckley VOR. Yeah, that's up there. Like that one. Alright, let's actually delete this. Okay, and the chances of us being able to, so if we plug in the Buckley VOR, sorry, we will likely be able to, we probably can't get it because there's this giant hill called Monument Hill, and that's all this terrain down here. So we're going to want to go, the Black Forest VOR doesn't do us much good. These are the jet routes. We probably don't need any of those. I think that they normally come up here, they fly that way, and yeah. And I'm looking around, I don't really see a good VOR. Buckley doesn't really help us. So we're going to rely on GPS this time, which I don't tend to like to do, but yeah. The control tower is on 118.9. I have the approach plates and other stuff in here. We have some Centennial Tower on 118.9, so that's good. We're going to need ground control and ATIS. ATIS is 119.675. Mine says something different, so I think their maps are actually out of date. Or mine are. We have ground control on 121.8. That's weird. ATIS is 120.3. Got that. Cool. So this is correct. I was just looking at the wrong number. So I think we're actually pretty good. So we're going to fly up here to Buckley. Now, this airspace is complicated because from Denver, this is a 10 nautical mile ring. That might be 5. I think that's 5. I don't have a chart. It's not moving. Well, no chart. Darn. But anyways, I think that's a 5-mile radius where 1,200 feet all the way down to the floor is all owned by them. That's inside this little chunk. That little upside down wedding cake. Now over here, they have a special one for this airfield over here. I think that's Kelly Air Park. And that only goes down to 7,000 feet because this is 6,000, I believe. Anyways, down here is 12,000 to 6,500. Airport's at 5.8 or 5.9, something like that. Buckley Air Force Base, we're not going to play with because they have their own little airspace chunk carved out right there. What we need to be paying attention to is this little number. So 12,000 and 9,000. So if we're underneath this shelf, we need to be below 12,000 or above 12,000. Below 9,000, above 12,000. I can say it right eventually, I swear. And then if we look in this guy, this is 12,000 and 8,000. So we have to be below 8,000 feet within 2 miles of Centennial. If we come off to the left, we have to be 10,000. So if we hold this 9,000, that will be just fine. And the airport elevation is almost 6,000. So that gives us a huge amount of buffer. We just have to know that when we're 10 miles out, we have to be below 9,000 minimum. And if I look at the ILS for 35 right, which is actually what I am thinking we're going to try and take. So this is 35 right. This is normally probably used for jets, and this is probably used for general aviation, prop planes, etc. because it's 7,000 versus 10,000. And then there's a really short 6,000 right there. We're going to take this because nobody else is on at the moment. And we're going to try and take 35 right. So if I look at the ILS for 35 right, which I will bring up so that you guys can see, this is the approach. So this is 9,000 at 15 miles. So we're going to try and hit that. No reason we can't. We have a GPS that tells us our distance. And then we're basically going to be descending. So we will punch this in as a backup, but we're not going to fly this as a primary. We're going to roughly fly visual. So we're probably going to come in 2,000 feet above the field. So yeah, about 9,000. We should start to pick up the glide slope, which come in about 8,000, or descend to 8,000. Then we're going to pick up the glide slope and we'll follow it all the way in. Because we can't really see it next plane, we're going to use the instruments, but that's kind of the approach path we are going to attempt to fly. I'm going to get our X-plane started, and we'll switch over to that window. Alright, so we are in the aircraft. I'm going to set my view up here, and I'm going to do a quick startup. We are at the general aviation again. Standard controls check before we really get started. And I'm going to do a quick startup, and we'll get out of here in just a second. Alright, we have Romeo information now. That's going to change things just a smidgen, because that means we have to take off to the south. I don't know why they're running that way, because the wind is going 270 at 4. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it is what it is. 3010. Let's get that dialed in. 3010. And double check, the field elevation is very similar to what we had last night, about 6100. So that looks correct. And now we're going to proceed with startup. We don't have to call ground to get started, unlike most of the military sims. And yeah, we'll be back when we're started. Alright, we are started up. We're going to come over here and program in our GPS. We're going to go direct to KA. Hey. Nice and easy. Alright, and then our flight plan is just direct, but we're going to put in Colorado Springs. That's our flight plan. Activate that leg. We're going direct of 344 for 46 miles. Now we're inside of airspace. We're going to have to pay attention to these rings, and we're going to have to remember 9,000. That's what it is. And we're going to actually tune that to GPS, and we're going to just follow the GPS in. Bringing up my... Alright. So we have ATIS on this one. We're going to tune in ATIS on for Centennial, which is on 120.3. We're going to leave that in the box, but turned off on our headset because we can't hear it right now. Then we're going to get ground and tower programmed in. We're going to go Springs ground is on 121.7. 0.7. And if you guys don't know what I'm working on this guy and this guy. Actually, no, just this guy. That's ATIS. So, on this guy, that's 121.7. There's ground. So that's an atypical frequency, so we're going to actually write that down. We're going to put tower on 133.15. So we're going to reach them once we get to the runway. For now, though, let's taxi. Myself looking out of the cockpit. Brakes release. And we're going to start programming some other stuff. So over here, we're going to set our altitude to our cruise altitude, which is keep prop it idle. So I heard a weather report of clouds 12,000. Which is not great because ground is 10,000, 11,000. Yeah, 10,000 over Monument. So we are actually going to need to go above 12,000, so 16,000, which was our original plan. That'll work. But we're just going to have to be wary of that. There's also clouds at 19,000. There's a few on both, so it shouldn't be too bad. Yeah. We are going to fly this bad boy at 140 in the climb. Actually, we're going to set this to V1, which is 90 knots. That's V1. Our heading is going to be, in case we have to come back to land, it's going to be 17. We'll set that for our course. 170. That's being adjusted on this guy, so that kind of twists him. But it's actually currently on GPS, so that won't actually twist. We can adjust the course heading bug, but that's about it. And we're going to climb in vertical speed mode, which will change once we pop in the altitude. We are going to skip the run up just because it's a simulator, and most of the stuff we can't do. And normally, there's a CTAF that we can use. Oh boy. I can actually pay attention to where I'm taxiing. This is why you don't look at charts and taxi. You stop and pull over. There is an AWAS on Monument Hill. That guy's taking off. What are you? Baron. Cool. I want one. That'd be nice. Okay. We're going to use a little bit of brakes. We're going to go a no flaps takeoff. And Call Springs Tower. King Air 123, ready for takeoff. 17 right. King Air 123, cleared for takeoff. 17 right. Make right hand traffic departure to the north approved. Now, we are going to then promptly taxi out and begin the adventure. Takeoff trim. We are ready to go. Actually, we have to contact tower.
Contact center on 135.60, 58 Baron, 5 X-ray Sierra.
There's full throttle. Looking for 80 knots, that's V1, that's where we rotate. 90 knots, we should begin to fly. So that's 80. 90. Apparently we're a little heavy today. Oh, we've got a tailwind, that's the problem. Also, gear up. Make sure the flaps are up. And we're going to make right-hand traffic. Field elevation is at 1,600 feet. We've got my trim wheel over here, that's what I'm messing with. And once we hit that's pattern altitude, we're going to make a right-hand 30 degrees of bank turn. Continuing our climb, and it looks like we're going to want to climb about 140, so we're going to set our IAS to 140. Continue our climb. And we're going to kick in autopilot. We're going to climb via IAS. And we're going to spin our heading bug around. That we're going north. Roughly that away. Engage heading mode, autopilot. 345. What are you doing? By the heading I tell you. Thank you. Then IAS mode. Are you not? There we go. IAS. 30, we're going to bump that up to 140. And at some point, once we kind of get out of their airspace, we want to stay out of the Air Force's airspace. But basically, we just want to climb straight up 16,000. The faster we can clear their airspace, the better. It just kind of keeps us out of their way. Normally, you would have the sectional chart there. I don't have it because it's just not really feasible to print out. That goes up to 10,000, so we're actually almost clear their airspace. Yeah, it only goes up to 10,000. So as soon as we hit 10,000, say, we're at this point we're clear to change frequencies. So we're gonna tune to 121.5 emergency, and we're just gonna monitor this. Now we are going to get prepped for our landing. We're gonna hit in nav mode instead of heading mode. Let the airplane fly on the GPS line, basically, and we'll set up for our approach. So we are going to be landing. Here's our approach briefing. I'm going to start pulling back things like the prop. We're going to pull back to 1900. So we're going to leave that at 2000. Let's pull back the throttles to not over torque, not over temp. Actually, I think you leave those. The climb, I think that's actually one of those things you leave. So we're going to leave that for now, but we're going to continuously adjust the mixture. We are going to turn on the prop sync. We're also going to turn on auto feather. Those guys are both on. We are coming on course. Nobody else around. Beautiful day for flying. So we're in IAS mode. We are climbing up to 16,000 feet. We've got to look out. There are some clouds broken there. And we're going to go ATIS 120.3 and turn on the second one so we can get that. Alright, I'm going to have to get that again. I missed it. It's super quiet. All I can hear is the airplane. Say it again. Okay, so that changes plans just a little bit. We don't need to hear ATIS again, so we're going to turn that off. That changes plans slightly. So we're going to have to land runway 10. Wow, that's a weird thing to be doing. They said winds are 230 at 8. It's technically the most in line, but it's the worst possible runway to be landing on. So, yeah. Terrible runway to land at. On? On. We're actually going to have to start our descent pretty soon, because there's that 10,000. So, go back to altitude. We're going to set that down at 8,000 feet. Set a vertical speed of 1,000 feet per minute. We didn't even have to touch the prop, but we are going to pull back, maintain that 160 on the descent. What's the range? So we're 30 miles out. That's about 15 miles out. Alright. We're still going to set it for 35 right. So the ILS for 35 right, the localizer, we're going to switch over to nav1. Is this guy. The localizer for this is 111.3. Weird. 111.3. There's the localizer. At 14.5 miles, we need to be at 9,000 on the dot. So we're going to put ourselves at 9,000. And that is 15 miles to go. We're doing alright there. Let's arm the approach mode. And actually go in here, set procedure. Flight plan. And you... Ow. Where was it? Does this not have a procedure? VNav. There it is. We're going to select the approach, the ILS for 35 right. That's the one that I have up. So we're going to hit enter. We're going to take vectors. We're going to load it. And in our flight plan, we're heading direct there. We're going to put the cursor in. Move the big one. And we're actually going to activate light. So we're actually activating the approach. 13 miles, we need to be at 9,000 feet. Rid of that. Cool, so we need to be at 9,000 feet there. 11. I think they're over here somewhere. Not 100% sure. And then we're going to start putting in a whole lot of backup information. So we're going to work on this little screen down here. And we're going to put our heading. That's going to be our climb out heading if we have any problems. The missed approach. Actually, no. First, we're going to set the course as a backup, just in case this doesn't work. It's going to be 350. I wish you guys can't see it. That'd be too easy. I've got 350. Now we're going to make our heading the one that we leave on, which is also 350. So that way, if we have to do a go around, missed approach, any of that stuff, we can climb out 350. Easy enough, right? And we do have a little bit of left to right crosswind, which is kind of why he's crabbing over there. Anything else we can do? Not really. We are in approach mode. How are we doing on altitude, airspace, and everything else? We're heading here to there. And there's a go all the way out and around, and then you hold here if you have to wait, because this is that 9,000 mark. We're 1,000 to go, so we should be okay. We should make that. Oh, we're 7 miles from where we need to be at 9,000. We're almost there. Now, Furper, which we're going towards, is at 9,000 feet. Should have the approach activated. Basically, we're going to fly just like this. This stuff is scattered enough, I think we can go through it, but you really shouldn't be going through stuff like that. We are nearly at 9,000 feet. Going to do an altitude hold. Then we're going to descend on heading 350 to at least 8,000 feet. We're definitely in IFR conditions now. That's not good. Turn on landing lights because we're coming in. Anti-ice to normal. Prop on. Fuel vents on. And we don't need any de-icing, any heavy de-icing yet. So we are at 9,000. We are perfectly on altitude. And as soon as we hit this next point, we're going to set it to 8,000. And that is this little guy right there. The way you change it is that you scroll this knob, you can click it to change hundreds and thousands. 1 mile to go. Now, in total, we're now 14 miles out, so we're going to actually start configuring. Currently doing 130 knots. 10 seconds, we're going to make our turn towards the airport. I'm going to leave this chart open. I actually need to start making calls. We should be talking to them by this point. Whoops. I completely missed that one. 118.9. Whoa. Alright, go down to 8,000. Feet a minute, that's fine. We have 2 minutes to get there. 118.9. No, that's not good. I changed it. Why did I change it? 111.3, that's in there. Go to COM1 and call them on 118.9. .9. Centnial King Air 123 with you 10 miles to the south. And they're going to come back and say, basically, welcome back. And we are going to start configuring, which means pulling the prop all the way back, mixture, and prop full flying. So at this point, actually we would want to come back with them for tower. We are on the V-lock. Perfect. We are low on the approach, but we're low. That's it right there. Why are we low? Don't hold vertical speed on the approach and nav. Yeah, I know you want gear. We're going to go... Fine, we're slow enough. Here's gear. Little throttle too. 7,000. Play nice, airplane. The approach is armed. We are low on glide slope. Kicking in a notch of flaps. Autopilot is still engaged. You have descended 7,000. The airport is at 6,700. JPLDG, which I think is the next one. We need to be no lower than... Oh, we just hit that. So we should not be this low. We should be at 8,000. I messed up on that one. But it is attempting to pick up the glide slope. We are landing right here. That's gear down. Flaps full. Switching over to my airport chart. Coming over here. We are apparently getting quite the set of bumps. We're going to slow down to 90 knots. We are 600 feet above the ground. That's a little low. You're not supposed to do that. So I messed up the approach, unfortunately. We didn't follow the procedure. And glide slope's coming in. And at this point, we're going to call King Air. Sorry, we're going to call Centennial Tower King Air 123, 5 miles to the southeast. Nope, 3 miles to the south. Runway 35. And tower's going to call back and say King Air 123 cleared for land, cleared to land from runway 35. Pretty soon we are going to take over. Kind of bumpy out there. We're well established on a glide slope. That's always good. So gas on the fullest tank. We don't have to worry about that. Undercarriage is down. Mixture and prop are full forward. And seat belts are pretend latched. Our own speed on glide slope. And flying from here. Looking out the window. Bring the nose down a little bit. We're a little low. A little high. We are lined up. We're now back on glide slope. Ooh, rendering. Apparently the weather updated. A little fast. A little low. Okay, we're a lot low. Over the threshold. Cutting power. Smashing it in. Not my best landing. I'm way too used to flying the F-18 where it's hit the point, not roll out. And we do technically have beta. We're going to take the high speed right there. Should be Alpha 13. If that is, we're going to taxi straight into the FBO. I did not even get ground in. 121.8. One to 1.8. We're going to swap over to ground. As soon as tower says, sometimes they will give you to just stay there. This is Alpha 13. Ground King Air 123, clear the active. They're going to call you and say, taxi via Alpha into the ramp. Alpha 12 into the ramp. We're going to come all the way over here. Taxi to the ramp. We're going way too fast for ramp taxi, but over here to the FBO. They've got their courtesy cars. That's cool. Normally you would want to line up with it on the left because, well, that's where the passengers get in and out. But you gotta make do with what you have. Fuel levers to cut off. Pull those up and turn everything off. We should have turned those off. Like auto feather and yeah. Resetting the airplane. We should have turned auto feather and prop sync off, or else if we had an engine failure on landing, oops, should have turned taxiway too. Then we would be able to recover from it instead of have a complete engine, instead of having it feather both engines. But that is it. Thank you guys for joining and flying with us. Hope you guys had fun and didn't mind that terrible flight. But thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next flight.